Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Jarron. Jarron, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ben. Glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Jarron, I'm excited. Your background is extremely relevant to the conversation today. So let's dive in. Let us get to know you. And then a question we ask every single guest: what do you love about content and marketing? So let's kick it off right there.
Sure. What I love about content and marketing is we're all storytellers at heart. And if you can find a way to articulate a narrative for a business to a customer in a way that resonates, then you're going to win 100% of the time. I think that's lost, is that human history has been built around our ability to storytell. So people like books, podcasts, movies, TV shows. And I think that that's something that can get missed, especially in a B2B environment. And if you can weave storytelling through a why, through a how, through a what, then you're going to have a competitive advantage that others can rarely match. So I find that really appealing. My background all over the place. I majored film production and wanted to be a film director. Went into the agency world because I thought I wanted to be Ari Gold from Entourage. Built my own tech startup in the music and fitness space. Met my now wife and quickly realized that was more important than bootstrapping a tech startup and delivering food for Grubhub to pay the bills, although learned a lot during that experience. And then started at Jump Crew, where I am now about 7 years ago as a frontline salesperson, and have done pretty much every job there is to do at this company. And currently am VP of growth, where I'm responsible for corporate marketing and strategy for Jump Crew and the Jump Crew brand, as well as one of our largest current clients, which is X, formerly Twitter. Got about 135 person sales team on their behalf.
I love it. And this is so cool because there are so many marketers who they may have had 1 or 2 years in sales and then they switched over to marketing. You've got a career full of sales and have just recently switched to marketing. So I think this perspective is going to be really, really important. And we're going to dive into something that's going to be a fun subject: how to use organic social content to prospect and get a hold of your target accounts. So Jarron, how does this process kind of work? How do we think about it? How are we using organic social content to really get in front of the right people?
I can speak from my own experience. You're right. I was selling as my primary objective. I did go to the dark side, and I do like this side of the house a little bit more. So I'm not ashamed to admit it. But as a salesperson, I was getting really frustrated by how little true connectivity I was having. Like, everybody spends so much time like over-engineering what's the best subject line and how do you structure a cold email and what's the hook and all this. And I just got so tired, and it was just a ton of noise, and like nobody was doing anything that I thought was truly innovative or new. And I also noticed that people were trying to over-engineer things like subject lines because it's the fastest way to doing the least amount of work. Because if you feel like you can engineer the right subject line, then you can scale that very quickly, meaning I'm still going back to what I was doing before, which is basically spraying and praying. But now I think I have a better mathematical advantage to spraying and praying. And I just thought that was really lazy. So I wanted to conceptualize some ways in which I could try something different. There were some selfish motives for sure. Selfishly, I wanted to try to do something that I thought was going to work for me in my sales role. Selfishly, I wanted something that I thought would help demonstrate me individually as somebody who was innovating and trying something new and was of value. And then also I wanted to start building a little bit more of a presence, especially on LinkedIn. And so I saw an opportunity there. The idea at the time had been, instead of just outbound emailing these folks that I know aren't going to, care about my email, who does, that I would instead actually do some work in advance on their behalf. And then I would share this work through high quality video. We had a studio here, and I figured if I did some of this work in advance, maybe I did 30 minutes to an hour of prep. And then I went in and sat in a studio and just kind of like talked for a few minutes, that I could cut this into something, show my work on their behalf, tag the company and maybe even the person I was prospecting, and then maybe they'd see it and it'd be in a different place than they were accustomed to. Maybe I could get eyeballs on some other people at their company as well as them. And I could keep those videos on my LinkedIn profile and show other people how I do my process, which at Jump Crew, we're an agency that bundles sales teams, a marketing agency, and operations all in-house to help B2B companies go to market and scale quickly. So they just outsource their entire growth and revenue function to us. And I wanted to be able to show our process. Like, that's one of the biggest questions we always got was, okay, well, how does it work? What would you do for us? Or like, you could show us some case studies. So I was like, you know what, why don't I just like do the work I do for these prospects at Jump Crew all the time, and I'll just show my work. So some of the companies that I had in my list that I wanted to prospect were Drizzly. Drizzly had released a report they called their like annual consumer report, I think, and they had all this data about the alcohol industry. I did Guinness Book of World Records, which has a whole, believe it or not, like ad side of their business. Clockwise, Lob, Harda, Prove. These were some of the companies that I just sat in front of a studio and I did a video about it. And I wanted to demonstrate like a level of specificity, wanted to show our process, and how can I stand out. And so I did all these videos, and then I pulled some data because I thought it'd be relevant for this meeting. Here's a couple of quick snapshots of how these went. Like, I had about 500 to 1,200 unique views on each one of these videos. So when you think about a one-to-one cold email, I can do this work and get 1,000 people to see it, whoever those people may be. And it may not have been my original prospect, and that's good. So it has a network effect that one-to-one emails didn't have. On average, the minutes viewed, I mean, we're in the hundreds of total minutes viewed, meaning that each one of those viewers was sticking around and watching, 2.5 minutes on average of each of these 5 to 10 minute videos. And then one of them, the company's CEO, reposted my video on their LinkedIn. One of the other companies reposted my video to their corporate page, had a meeting with their CRO who offered me a job. And another one, their CRO messaged me back, but said they weren't interested. Another one, I had 3+ new connections at that company, people who like reached out to me and connected with me on LinkedIn. Drizzly, I started an email exchange with one of their SVPs. It didn't go anywhere, but like that email exchange came from me sending him the link to the video. I put in this post where I was summarizing this, that there's a quote from Mark Twain that was kind of the genesis of all this, which was, when you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect, is basically the paraphrased version. And if everybody's over here, like, how do we make the perfect email over here? It's like, then that means everyone's going to be trying to send the perfect email. Maybe you try to zig while they zag. So really long-winded explanation of how I view content, at least what the genesis was. And of course, that's definitely started to translate a lot into my world now as a full-time marketer.
I love that. So just a couple logistics, because I'm super fascinated with that strategy and everything you did there. First and foremost, I love the one-to-one communication. There is something there that businesses often forget. And it doesn't matter how big your clientele is, because I love how you turned a one-to-one communication into a one-to-many communication, which I think is a trick that a lot of businesses forget, that even if you're speaking to one person, can you figure out a way to have it go in front of many people? So when you recorded these videos, you spent some time, you did some research, you got in front of a camera. Did you just post to your LinkedIn feed and tag them? Or did you message or email? How are you kind of getting that cross-pollination with other potential prospects from that?
It was a couple of touch points. I posted the video to my LinkedIn first, and then I shared the link to the video in direct LinkedIn in-mail messages to a number of different contacts at the company. And I would hit more people than I ever thought would be a good prospect for me, trying to create some level of circulation. I have found in a very small sample size, not validated by any data, this is purely qualitative, is that when I group people together, it tends to accelerate the likelihood of me connecting with somebody, because there's a little bit of accountability there. So sometimes I'll do those groups in a LinkedIn message where I'll put 4 or 5 people from the same company and send them all the link. And it was pretty short and sweet. I did a go-to-market strategy for Drizzly. Here are my thoughts. That's going to just get an open no matter what. And so few people are spending the time to do any pre-work because it's not easy. And because it's not easy, very few people do it. That's another zig when they zag type thing. So especially, if you're looking at whatever your product is, software or otherwise, if there's a way to translate the value of your product into a specific use case for a prospect and show the work, and it wasn't easy, or just like a report, which, anybody can build a tool that spits out some phony data and says, hey, we ran a site health check and you got a 65. We'd love to talk about ways to optimize your website. Like, you can as far as you want, but if you can show true, intentional, human-based work that required effort, especially now post-COVID, that's when I really started to see like the gates really shut, was after COVID. Everybody's digital fortress just became that much more difficult to penetrate. And there was a level of appreciation, I think, for like just a human connection. And so I think that was definitely part of it, sending the messages on LinkedIn to a number of people. And then if I could find what I thought was the right email address for that person, I would add them into a few touch sequence where it was templated sequence, but I had to customize a few sections in there. And I would include the link to that as well. And it would be funny to see the types of people who were commenting or engaging on the videos themselves. Had nothing to do with that company, but I was like, great, those are the eyeballs that I want to plant this acorn right now. And I think that's just from a macro standpoint, one of my biggest learnings as a marketer is we all want that like dopamine hit of this lead turned into a deal, cha-ching, hit the gong. But it is so much more planting acorns in a very large field than it is being able to just bow and arrow and bring home dinner. And I think that's a difficult transition from salesperson that likes to close deals to marketer, but it's really beautiful to watch when it plays out.
I think that's amazing. There's so many things I love about that. One of my other questions that I have about this kind of strategy, how does it scale? And, are there any opportunities for you to expand these efforts? Because it sounds like it's a great experimental way to really get in front of the right people, maybe an ABM strategy, things of that nature. But if you find it's catching traction, how do you scale it to keep that authenticity and that personalization for those businesses?
That is the very valuable question that everybody has been trying to define, is like, how can I get this thing that seems to be working as wide and as broad as quickly as possible? And as I thought about that, because I've been asked that question before, and I don't know if I really had a good answer, but as I was just thinking about it, I think that the definition of scale has to be slightly different. Scale means, can you go from one person doing it to more than one person doing it? And that more than one person doing it can be anything, right? Do I go from me to two people to three people to four? That's technically scale. And I think that the point at which you can influence a strategy's ability to scale or not is the expectation that you set with people that fulfill that role and the KPIs and measurements that you establish for that role as successful. So if I hire a salesperson on my team, I shouldn't be interviewing them on their ability to hit KPIs and to close deals and to run sequences and to run me through a deck. I would ask them to create a go-to-market strategy for a company as part of their interview process. And I'd like to see you record a video, 10 minutes, telling me how you would build a sales team and layer marketing on for this company. And that's your interview. And we're going to do that a couple of times. Because then every day, your KPI is you create and submit 8 of these a day, 1 per hour. That's your KPI. And so that's where you can create a framework around scale. It's the philosophical shift that's weird, is that's not 80 activities a day. That's not dials. That's not emails. But if you're doing 8 of those a day, 5 days a week, 4 weeks out of every month, that starts to build. And I had thought about this as being interesting, a database where if you had an internal, this is just for my use case, if we had an internal database where you could then filter all the recordings that we had ever done by company size, revenue, employee headcount, industry, and prospects could then access that database and add filters and watch us do our product, which is strategy and execution of sales and marketing teams. That would be our case studies, because I don't I don't believe in case studies really. I don't think anyone's ever bought because they were like, look at that PDF case study. Well, now I'm sold. Hell yeah. Like, I think that they want to see more of how it works. And I thought that might be a way to do how it works. So scale, I think, has to be defined by what's your definition of scale. Is it because if you can translate less activity to higher ROI, meaning if we do 8 of those a day, 5 days a week, can we create a opportunity pipeline that's more valuable and closes faster than if we did 100 emails and phone calls 5 days a week, so on and so forth. So we just have to like slightly shift our interpretation of what activity means for salespeople. And there's a nice little intersection there between sales and marketing where you're doing that work together. And every one of those becomes a piece of content marketing can then deploy and distribute through more traditional marketing channels.
I love that. And I think that message rings true, and we're running out of time, but really the idea of doing something that's more impactful with a higher conversion rate is worth the time, as opposed to just the really busy work that has the really low percentages. I think with AI, there's this opportunity to really do that and do that well, to do the research, to make things personalized, to really dig your teeth into it, not to replace the human element, but enhance it. I think that there's a lot of value there with what you're doing. I love this strategy. I think there's a lot there, but Jarron, we're out of time. If anyone wants to connect and reach out and connect and talk to you online, how and where can they find you?
LinkedIn's a great spot. If you can't tell, I'm active there and spend a lot of time. So Jarron Vosberg on LinkedIn is the best place to reach me. I'm always happy to connect with folks, even just to tell me that my ideas are weird and it'll never work. I like that just as much.
I love it. Well, Jarron, again, thanks for the insights and your time today.
Likewise, Ben. This was fun. Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.